Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the next edition of the Tao of Glass podcast, where if you have ever wanted to spend some time with a wizard and a Viking, you came to the right place. So welcome all, and we have some special guests today. We're super excited about today's episode and conversation, and with that, I'll turn it over to you, Trent, to make introductions, and then we'll dive right in.
Yeah, I just want to introduce some people that I've recently met that I was really impressed with, and I'm excited to have a conversation with today. We have Debbie Hart and Markus Hadlock. I'll let Debbie kind of kick off the introductions, and we'll go from there.
Hey, sounds good. Thank you so much, Trent. We are so grateful to be here. There's nothing more that I love in life than meeting and connecting with new people and just getting to hear their stories and their journeys. And podcasts are the most beautiful way to do that. I recently started my own, and that's how I got connected with Markus. So for a decade, I did results coaching through the Tony Robbins company. I got my own certification, started my own thing locally here in Utah, and I really loved it. It's very rewarding and fulfilling work. I never thought I would do anything different. But after a divorce and some other life's curveballs, I ended up in the mortgage industry because I just couldn't hold that space for people for a time. I needed to just have some, what I thought would be mindless work and to have some recovery period. And I started as an admin for that reason, but I quickly found, real estate is dynamic, and the rates and the workarounds and all the different products and getting to know the people, like the people skills, the communication skills, and quickly discovered I'd be really good at that. So I did get my mortgage license, started doing that. Within 6 months, I built a coaching program for the real estate agents that I work with, because that's who I am. I love motivating people, building them up, teaching classes. I do a lot of classes and events. But it was real estate specific for quite some time until I started branching out and meeting some business owners. I thought, mortgages took a dip past couple of years, keeps getting harder and harder. And so I just get, like business owners do, entrepreneurs do, we get innovative, right? I'm like, what can I do that's different? I'm not giving up. I love this career. I love working with people. I love being in charge of my own schedule. How can I be more innovative? So I went beyond the real estate agents and started networking with business owners. I'm like, well, they know a lot of people. If they're recruiting out of state people, they're going to need a home, they have a lot of employees. So those are people that know a lot of people. I just started networking with business owners, and my natural skills started coming out in these conversations, right? In these lunches. And, the life coaching skills, the business skills that I had from my coaching background, and people just started asking for more of that. And so I built, and I have some teenage boys at home too, that I was thinking, man, I want to start bringing them with me to some of these meetings. So it started out, I built a teen entrepreneur event. And from the day I had that thought in my head that I just want something like this for my 2 teenage boys that I have left at home. I actually have 6 kids. Raised all 6 of them by myself for the last 11 years, but I just have 2 boys left at home, and I wanted them to meet these people and hear these conversations. And I thought, I'll bet other parents do too. So I thought, I'll just throw an event together, ask a couple of my buddies that I've had these lunches with to come speak, and we'll just make a morning out of it. So that was 20 days from that thought in my head on a hike with some entrepreneurs to the day I had the event, and 150 people showed up.
Wow.
We had 75 seats available.
Wow, well done.
The lines were out the door. We ran out of food, but that's a great problem to have, right? I'm willing to get innovative on that. So we brought in extra chairs, and there was a second floor, and there was side areas, and we opened the glass doors, and people were eating, listening in the kitchen area, and it was a blast. And so I partnered up with a guy named Sean Finnegan, who, because it was his building I was going to use, and he liked what I was doing. He's got teenagers himself. He's done stuff like this before. He's a wildly successful multi-entrepreneur. I mean, no one even knows how many businesses he's actually involved in, but it's many, many, many. But his main one is Tax Hype, and that's where this building is. And he is literally business partners with Kevin O'Leary of Shark Tank. And so he offered to do, so I had curated these speakers, and he said, well, why don't I do some Shark Tank breakoff sessions? I'm like, oh yeah, everyone will love that. So the kids broke off into these groups, and the facilitators helped them come up with an idea, and they stood on the stage and they pitched their ideas, and they won. And we had people who donated prizes. So we had coaching packages and We had a $10,000 website SEO business launch package that was the grand prize, and everyone just loved it. So Sean and I decided to grab those speakers and some of the other super amazing people that he knows, best-selling authors and billionaire CEOs, and we launched a podcast. Because again, like, people love hearing these speakers and these ideas, right? So it wasn't just the teens, like many parents came too. That's why there was 150 people, right? The parents wanted to stay. They're like, can I come too? I want to hear these people. I want to hear these conversations. So here we are. We built a podcast. And then again, more business owners started reaching out. I need mentorship. I need to know what to do. How are you so fearless in front of people? How do you just think an idea in your head and just get it done in 3 weeks and have 150 people show up? You know, people were asking those things. And to me, it's normal, but apparently a lot of people just want to be able to do that and don't either, know how, like whether it's a network piece or a mindset piece or the logistics of marketing piece, or how do you build an LLC? Like some stay-at-home mom, like I was when I got divorced, I was stay-at-home homeschooling mother of 6, and all of a sudden I got divorce papers and an eviction notice and everything was emptied out. Like I was starting from scratch, from square one, right? And so people are like, how did you do that when you didn't know anything? Like no one taught you. How do you self-teach? Where do you find the resources? So we've been putting all of those together, and we put them together for a little bit for the teens. That event was so popular that some homeschool moms have reached out and paid me to build a course for them. And then the podcast was so popular. Sean and I are going to be doing a live event. And then that's where Marcus and his business partner, Jeff. So Marcus's business partner, Jeff Crane, was one of the speakers I had at the teen event. And I asked him to speak at our adult event too, because he knows a lot of these business owners and he's good, like 20-year friends with Sean Finnegan, my partner. And he says, well, we're launching this new company. And I'm not gonna steal Marcus' thunder. I'll let you tell him what it is. But instantly, Sean and I were like, we want in. We want to do this. This fits just into what we're doing. Like, this is the best. Like, these conversations, like we're having today on podcasts that we have in these lunches, they lead to on-the-spot collaborations that make everybody do bigger and better things. We make more money together by collaboration, right? They say competition happens at the bottom, but collaboration happens at the top. And that's what Jeff and Marcus and I and Sean are working on together now. So they're going to help us promote our new events and podcasts, and we're helping them promote their new thing that I'm now going to let Marcus introduce and talk about.
Yeah, so what we're doing, we're putting together a business called Influence Books. And what we originally wanted to do was put together some courseware for people that wanted to write a book. I mean, there's a story I read about these Stoics. I don't know, this Stoic friend of mine, he told me this story and gave me this book, and I read it. And he said, basically, the best stories are the stories that are in the graveyard. It's basically saying that people die with their stories. There's so many people that have a story that they want to write that they never got out of them, and so the best books are those that reside there with their bodies, unfortunately. So what we're trying to do is solve 3 problems. The problems are writer's block, because a lot of people get intimidated. They sit down to write, and they don't really know how to start or how to format their book and all that. So writer's block, cost effectiveness, because ghostwriters and having somebody hire somebody on to help you do those things is really expensive. And that when you go into it, you don't know for sure if you're going to make money out of it. So it's hard to justify that investment. And the third thing is, what do you do with the book when it's done? And I'm sure everybody that writes a book hopes that it's going to be a bestseller, right? But the solution we see to that is that you can use your book as basically like a business card. You can hand it out to somebody. You can use it to promote. You can speak at events and hand out books. At one of the events I went to, where Greg Reed was there. He's a best-selling author, and he came in with all this energy. He was super enthusiastic, and he started asking, who wants a book? And everybody in the room raised their hands. And so he'd walk over and hand him one of the books, and then he'd talk about it for a minute, and then he'd do it again. Who wants another book? And all the hands would shoot back up. So it's an opportunity to kind of hand something out to somebody that they can invest in you in and learn more about you. And in the back of the book, there will be reference back to our business. Hey, do you want to write a book? And it'll explain the process and how to get in touch with us. So we're pretty excited about that. So that's what we're doing. I actually got into this with Jeff because my background is an artist, like you mentioned earlier. I guess you didn't on recording, but I came from NFTs and Web3, and I left a job that I had for like a decade to jump into Web3 full time, and we minted out a project that I did the artwork for. But soon after that, crypto and NFTs kind of took a huge dip, right? So I'm pivoting into something that's new and exciting. But one thing I did in that time period where I was doing NFTs is I put together a book, and it's just kind of a silly book I put together with mid-journey artwork, and it did some storytelling and things through visual images and things, and kind of took more the role of an art director instead of the actual artist, utilizing AI technology to put that together. And Jeff got a copy of that book, Jeff Crane, and he was thrilled with it. He thought it was awesome. And I kind of didn't think much of it because I'm like, well, anybody could do this. But what I didn't realize is like my background in publishing and my background in like getting teams together, putting things together. I did courseware and putting courseware together and on e-learning platforms. That's not something that everybody necessarily can do. And I feel like it's funny because whatever your strengths are, you kind of take them for granted and you assume everybody knows how or could do those things. It's just one of those human nature things, I guess. But yeah, so we decided to team up and we're putting this together.
Well, that's really exciting. I mean, you guys are involved in a lot of things, and I mean, it's just fascinating. I mean, first of all, NFTs, I promise they will be coming back. I mean, working in crypto taxes, I'll tell you what.
Yeah,
I see a lot of that every day, and while it might be in a dip, markets fluctuate. So, wait for that on that. And Debbie, your stuff when you work with Sean Finnegan, and that is really exciting as far as like teen entrepreneurs and your ability to build courses. I guess one of my biggest first questions is, I'd like each of you to speak. We'll start with Debbie and then move over to Marcus. But talk about your mindset. Talk about the belief structures that led you to do this. Like how, what I mean, like you said, you got this divorce and you were like starting from scratch one. So like, what was your belief structure at that time, and what was the mindset that really drove you to start creating these new things for yourself?
That is a very great and imperative question, because when I went through that, I mean, I had 5 minutes to find somewhere for me and 6 kids to live. I literally had to beg for food and shelter. And yet, and everyone's like, oh, I'm so sorry, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, who amongst us escapes life without curveballs, right? I'm not a victim. Like, everybody goes through stuff, but it's mindset is key. Are you going to roll over and die and let this eat you alive? What good is that going to do? Like, I had 6 kids to take care of, right? So, you just get resilient and you get creative and you get innovative. How can I figure this out? For me, I mean, now I'm a thriving businesswoman, but I was not. I was a stay-at-home homeschooling mom. And my first thought was, I didn't have 6 babies to pay someone else to raise them. That was not my ideal. So how can I figure this out? I don't want to have someone else in charge of my schedule, 8 to 6 or 9 to 5 or whatever it is, and tell me that I can or cannot go to my kids' soccer game at 4 or to their field trip day if I wanted to. I'm a mom first. And even though I don't have someone supporting me now, there's got to be a way. There's always a way. I'm going to find the way. Mindset was first. And I'm so grateful that I have always loved to read, because I knew those things were possible only because I read about mindset. I was an avid consumer of personal development. And that's how I had the mindset and the drive and the determination to get through those things and find a way to create life on my terms, despite all odds seeming to be against me. And so I know anybody can. If I can get from the situation that I was in to where I'm at now, while staying home with my kids and while controlling my schedule, it seems impossible, but with the right mindset, it is. Because, and I know you guys probably talk about mindset a lot, but it's that reticular activating system, right? When you buy a new car, now you see that car everywhere. So if you're focused on, this is what I need to have happen, where are my solutions for this? Then the door is open and you can see them. The cars are always there, right? The solutions are always there. The opportunities are always there. They're infinite. They're limitless. But if your mindset is around, oh my gosh, I can't do this, then that is all that you will see. because your mind works with the beliefs that you are putting in. So if you focus on limitations, you can only see and experience limitations. If you focus on the questions like, where's the opportunities? How do I do this? Then the solutions and the options and the opportunities open up for you.
I love that. I absolutely love that. And it's absolutely true. Because I'll tell you what, every time I get a different car, it's like, I see that car, like right now I drive a Honda CRV and I can't tell you how many, I see them everywhere. But I mean,
Every time.
really keeping that in mind of like, the solutions and not the limitations, you know what I mean? Like, and how like literally the universe will like reorder itself and you'll meet random people or have random experiences because of what you're thinking about and how important what that is. That's incredible story. Marcus, how about you? What was it for you that really helped you pivot, especially, when the market dropped out on NFTs and you had to pivot, how did that affect your mindset and belief and how did you continue on?
Yeah, so I mean, after leaving a full-time job that I was at for a decade and kind of going off on my own, when I first made that leap, it was really easy because money was plentiful. I mean, I had a Mutant Ape yacht club that was worth a Tesla at the time. I bought into Bitcoin when it was at 40,000, and then when that dipped, I definitely went through a darker time where money wasn't growing on trees anymore. I couldn't just reach out and grab a peach, and I think that Mutant Ape Yacht Club today is worth like 8,000. That was worth 40,000. So I definitely went through a dark time and kind of had a lot of anxiety and things. And during that time period, in the last 2 years, I got into I started reading a lot of Eckhart Tolle. I started getting into Dr. Joe Dispenza stuff and his whole mindset thing. And I really learned that stuff was pivotal and so important to kind of let go of the past and to let go of resentment and, fears and all that stuff. And I try to take time every morning before I touch my phone, I try to take time to just meditate and just kind of, I have this mantra that I memorize, but I kind of go off script every morning and kind of do my own thing, but kind of base it off of that mantra. That has my ambitions included and my family life stuff and my goals. And man, that really makes a huge difference. Life does not feel as heavy, even when stuff's not going right. I don't feel as bogged down or, yucky. I have hope and I stay grateful, and that stuff makes a world of a difference for sure.
That's incredible to hear. I agree with the meditation and stuff. I get up every morning and I do pranayama. I'm a yoga teacher, so it's one of those things where like being able to get that oxygenation in the morning for myself through some breath work is really, really important for myself.
I really love that. Dispense is one of my favorites because a lot of people think meditation is woo-woo or unexplainable, and he really brings the science of what's going on in your brain and just made it more mainstream. But for me, I want to add to that too, the morning meditation to me is pivotal in getting kind of into that flow state where then you feel more, instead of just like going on my to-do list, like who do I need to call, who do I need to follow up with, I more intuitively get in alignment. So one of the things I was reading was the Surrender Experiment by Michael Singer, which is really what led me to all of this, was not just like visualizing and creating my goals specifically, but more like being in alignment with the highest path for my life that I maybe wasn't consciously aware of on my own.
Yeah, completely. I mean, it's really hard to describe to people. I mean, I've struggled with this myself in like yoga, and like when I first got into yoga, I was in my early 20s, and then I went and I got certified and I taught a yoga certification program, and I was really trying to evangelize it, you know what I mean? And it's one of those things where people are just kind of like, yeah, and it was really discouraging. But at the same time, after talking about it for so long, people would come back and be like, hey, can you tell me a little bit more about that? Like, I think that might be something that I need. Do you know what I mean? And I think that people are really slowly starting to realize like the importance of that, especially in this digital era. Do you know what I mean? Where we're constantly on our phones. You know what I mean? We're constantly like trying to be in front of a screen, watching TV or on our computers, doing something right with the screen. And I think that really learning to like step back from that and take some time, some personal time to do something different, get into nature and really connect with oneself. I think is one of the biggest things that can help drive people's motivation and productivity, honestly. Kevin, I'd love to hear your thoughts on what's been said.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, and I'm going to take this full circle a little bit back to really the essence of the Tao of Glass philosophy that got us here, which is that your glass is always completely full, but its contents are only relatively useful. So there's a presumption that the glass always has some mix of water and air, but really, if it's completely full of water and you need oxygen, then you're in a tight spot. And the converse of that is also true. And if it's partly filled with water and air, but you need gasoline, then the contents are not useful. And so we've expanded on this into every aspect of life. And again, taking it full circle, one of the meditations that we landed on is just waking up every day and greeting the day and greeting the universe with a sense of awe and wonder that, hey, universe, I can't wait to see what you do next, or I can't wait to see what you have in store for me. Because the good and bad labels are that's a human experience, and it's a human label. Like, we put labels on things and say, oh, that's horrible, right? Nothing good it's easy to say, like, nothing good can come of that. Or something is really great and you're not really considering the risks and some of the other possible outcomes. So it really, a lot of things do come down to usefulness. And like, first of all, Debbie, I really commend you for working through what you have gone through and turning it into something beautiful. That's amazing. And and to your point, part of that is it's not useful to just sit back or not get out of bed and pull the covers over your head and think, woe is me, right? These things are happening.
Not to you, but for you. They're all working together for your good.
Exactly. Having faith in the universe, that is, the universe is not going to throw anything at you that you cannot handle.
Yep.
And you have faith that there, and even wonder and awe that it's going to be good and you can turn it into something good. You have that skill set, you have that ability. And if you greet each day that way with that morning meditation and say, here I am, I'm ready to go, whatever, come what may, right? Things will they'll tend in your favor.
I agree. That goes back full circle to mindset. It's a choice to get up and greet the day like that, and let it turn out for your good, and choose the gratitude in the moment instead of waiting for hindsight 2020, 10 years later. Because I know now I am relentlessly driven and determined and ambitious only because of what I went through. I would have continued to be complacent in my comfort had I not been put in that position and been compelled into that level of greatness in my mind. So it absolutely all worked together for my good.
That's so some questions just popped in my mind and I'm really curious to ask them. First Debbie, then Marcus. Debbie, for you, how do you change the way that you educate teens versus adults with respect to mindset? I'm sure that that's a very different situation. And Marcus, afterwards, I'd love to understand how you guys are dealing with mindset. When you talk about this writer's block and getting people to actually get to do that, what does that look like for you guys when you guys are trying to educate people and help people in that space?
Okay, well, I don't feel like educating, there's only minor differences, because I think the number one problem is that most adults underestimate what teenagers are actually capable of a lot. Yeah. And so they have the ability to launch their businesses, to make intelligent, informed, educated decisions if we give them the opportunity to do so. About the only difference is that we keep the events a little bit shorter, a little more fun, and the speakers are 10 minutes or less. That's really the only difference, because they're far more capable than we give them credit for. We've actually had a couple of parents call in and say, hey, I've got like 10 and 11-year-olds that are running their own businesses. Can they come? I'm like, if they're that mature at that age, absolutely. We've even got some booths. We're going to have a marketplace at the next one. The next one's September 9th here in Orem, Utah, 9:30 to 12:30. And we're having a marketplace for the ones that did launch a business from the last one. They're going to be able to sell their products and services here.
That's really cool. Very cool.
Yeah. And then to answer your question for me, what we're trying to do is kind of break things down instead of like this huge task of write a book. We're trying to block it out into small achievable tasks, and we're actually utilizing AI to kind of help facilitate some of that stuff. So the writer's block, for example, a lot of people don't know where to start. They've written a few paragraphs in a Word document on their computer somewhere, and then it sits there for months, right? So what we're trying to do is we're trying to get people to share those thoughts, or share that their starting points, and then show them how they can utilize AI like ChatGPT and put that in there and say, hey, can you elaborate on this, or can you format this like a chapter of a book, or something that gives them a starting point, right? As an artist, it's kind of freaky to see all the AI artwork and Midjourney and stuff coming out, but if utilized correctly, it can be like a huge springboard into your productivity. For example, the ability to see all these different concepts and what they might look like and what color palettes and things is a huge advantage. And I see using ChatGPT as the same thing. So if you can throw out your idea and have ChatGPT kind of formulate it in a typical chapter format of a book, and then you can go in there and say, okay, this doesn't sound like something I would write, but I like how they put this, and they can start adding their own flavor into it. That's where I think it's really beneficial. I'm not a huge fan by any means of just putting something in ChatGPT and copy pasting it and claiming it as your own. I'm a huge advocate of actually putting some of your own effort into that. So that's what we're trying to do. And also with the courseware that we're putting together, we're breaking out each piece, each step into a smaller achievable goal. Teaching them how to do formatting, or how to do custom page numbering on their books if they want to do that, or like all those different things, how to do an introductory page and all that sort of things in small achievable tasks that they can easily palette and achieve. So
And
Yeah,
so
that-
I want to add to that. Marcus and Jeff are going to be speaking at both of our upcoming events. At the teen event, they're going to be talking about how the ability to have your own book, because they make it faster and easier, will build a lot of confidence for teenagers that have an idea in them. And that at the adult event, they're going to be sharing that, you don't have to be in personal development or an influencer or a motivational guru to need a book anymore. Any industry can have a book to build credibility and authority, but most business owners do not have the time to bother with that. And so these guys make it fast and easy to get that book done, and then have that as your credibility in any industry at all. It doesn't matter if you're in restoration or mold cleanup, or it doesn't matter what real estate. It just helps a lot to have a book and be an author. And they're actually going to be giving away their product as one of the prizes at the teen event.
Oh, that's awesome. That's fun.
Yeah, so I actually have a personal thing to share that that comes with a question for the two of you. So in my professional life, I run a mastermind for software founders and investors. And then a funny thing came out of that, which is just by chance, about a year ago, my now adult age nieces and nephews and my own kids, who are all in their 20s, they started coming to me with questions about economics and investing and entrepreneurship. And they all started, it was almost like coincidence, where all of a sudden they were all asking me kind of the same questions at the same time. And so I said to them, I said, hey, I have experience. Like, I have the skill set to run a mastermind. I can do the same for all of you, where it's kind of like a mastermind for you and anyone else that you want to invite. And we'll set up a regular schedule, and we're going to focus on macroeconomics and investing. And so it's been super rewarding to have them. Well, it makes, on a very personal level, it makes me feel useful as like Dad or Uncle Kevin, right? To have people peppering me with questions like, hey, what about this? What about that? And what do you know about, like whatever, bonds versus stocks or ETFs or whatever it is, or crypto or NFTs, right? But my question for you that comes out of that is, it seems like for teenagers and people in their early 20s, the hardest part is getting started. Like, the thing that it seems like where kind of what separates people from those who are doing and achieving and those who are not is just the fear of taking step one. So how do you overcome that with teens and show them that, okay, it's not, it sounds daunting, there are 1,000 steps to success, here's the first. Like, this is what this is how we help you to take the first step forward, because other things will come after that if you take that first step.
So that is the best question of the day, because that is the reason I started it all. Was because teens, and a lot of adults actually, but teens are notorious for excuses, right? Oh, I don't have a driver's license, or I don't have a lawnmower, I can't do a lawnmowing business. Like, they're notorious for self-doubt and excuses, which a lot of adults still struggle with too, unless you've done that inner work with meditation or personal development or both. So that was why I hand selected the speakers to have an intense hero's journey story to tell. So, and most of them, it was all of them, sorry, it was something that they overcame in their youth. So one of them, her own father put her in the trafficking trade and trafficked her out. Another one, she grew up in a polygamous cult. She had 22 siblings. Her mom escaped with her at age 12, and she had never even been a day in public school. But she graduated at 18 with honors and had 6 franchises by the time she was 22. All the speakers had a story like that. And the whole point of the event wasn't the prizes and the breakout sessions at the end, because they won't do that unless they first have the mindset of, oh, wow, if those guys can get over that, I don't have valid excuses. I mean, if you want to fight for your excuses, you get to keep them, right? But everybody has stuff. That's why, I'll share I don't like sharing, my story because of what I overcame, whatever, because I don't like the response of, oh, that must be so hard for you, or he'll get his, or no, it's about what you do about it, right? We all have those stories. Those speakers overcame things that are unspeakable to most of us, right? And a lot of parents were concerned about hearing some of the stories, but afterwards, tons of phone calls, text messages, Facebook messages came in saying, wow, my teen needed to hear that stuff. This was life-changing, that stuff. Like, how do you overcome that? Because that's what they shared. They shared their hero's journey, the super hard, intense, very real things they overcame. And then despite that, started their own business, created life on their own terms anyway.
Wow. But that's actually really true. I think that's one of the biggest things that I've heard today is the fact of, like, if you want to fight for your excuses, then you get to keep them. You absolutely get to keep them.
They're valid.
Yeah.
Your complaints are valid, but what good does that do you?
But again, there's also the opportunities that are valid. And I think that, really, which is why mindset, I believe, is so important. You know what I mean? I've seen so many people struggle with this, and they're so talented and they're so knowledgeable. And it's like, just go take that first step, as Kevin said. And I think that's one of the hardest things for people to really do is, how do I take that first step? Which is something that I really like what you said, Marcus, in the sense of breaking things down into small, achievable steps. Yeah.
That's where I think it's really applicable to have both, because mindset is definitely first and foremost. That will determine whether you take the steps or not. But you got to have a mentor or some training, or figure out. Tony Robbins has a great quote about this. He's like, you've got to have the right action, right? No amount of running west chasing a sunrise is going to work. No amount of sitting in your garden chanting "there are no weeds" is going to work. You've got to actually know that you got to take action, and you've got to know what action steps to take, right? And that's where you go to these events. That's where you have these conversations. That's where you get a mentor, right? Mindset's first, but then those things are definitely next.
I'm also a huge advocate of start where you're at. For example, I did a YouTube channel for like 2 years. I did like creativity videos and things and tried to inspire people to be more creative. But when I first started that, I was more overweight. I was probably 30 or 40 pounds heavier than I am now. I didn't have a nice camera. I just used my phone. But I can tell you right now, I am so grateful to that version of me that decided to start and put himself out there and just start doing something productive and creative. And YouTube felt like a failure to me because I grinded hard doing a weekly video, sometimes 2 weekly videos. for over a year. It was like 2 years, I think. And I think I made like $150 from ad revenue at the end of that. I had like 10,000 subscribers. But that segue, and because I was being creative and, keeping my creative skills sharp, that segued me right into NFTs right when they were booming. And I got connected to a good project and found some good people to work with over there. And, that changed my life. But it wouldn't have happened had I never started making YouTube videos. I wouldn't have been sharp. I wouldn't have had my skills proficient, and it wouldn't have happened. So, I mean, if I hadn't started, then I wouldn't be where I am today. I'd be still working in a job I didn't love and comfortable.
Just start.
Absolutely.
Great. 100%. Just start.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that also speaks to passion and consistency. You know what I mean? Being consistent at something, like, although you did the YouTube channel for, close to 2 years and you didn't really make a lot of money, because of you were consistent of keeping those creative skills sharp, and that consistency allowed you to, when the opportunity showed up, you were ready for it, and it was still something that you were passionate about, being a creator, being an artist and doing that. I think that that's a huge takeaway for a lot of people, in the sense of consistency is really key. That's one of the things that I also teach in yoga, in the sense of, like, look, you're not going to do a sun salutation one day and all of a sudden be able to touch your toes. In yoga, there's a saying that the slower you go, the faster you get there. So meaning, like, the slower that you move, but the more consistent that you are, the faster that you will get there. So there's no need to, like, rush through all of your asanas and rush through your breath work. Is just take your time. You know what I mean? Give yourself an allotted amount of time, and what you get through. But it's that consistent effort, small efforts every day, that aggregate to large results, so to speak.
And I would say it's self-compassion during that point, because everyone, this is what the teens and any new entrepreneurs or anyone in life realize. I mean, no one's good at anything the first time or their first several things. Nobody's good. Nobody's good at their first podcast. Nobody's good at their first YouTube video. Nobody's good at their first whatever product or service you're offering. I mean, at some point in time, you're on a flight, and that's that pilot's first time flying, or some doctor is performing surgery for the first time, and thank goodness that they keep going. And mentors and accountability partners, and self-study, consistency, but compassion on not being good when you're starting. That's something we've all got to get through in order to get good. You just have to realize you're not going to be good at the first time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I'm going to touch on something that it's something you and I have never talked about before, and it just popped in my head because of this conversation. And I think it's something that the four of us can explore together. So everybody knows about imposter syndrome, right? I think there's a universal understanding of what that is, so we've all experienced it. But there's something that I just realized, which is, and Marcus, while you were speaking, it occurred to me that there's a common trait among successful entrepreneurs where we're not only able to connect the dots in the future, but we're also able to connect the dots from our past. And I think that that's a really difficult and deeper thing that we can explore or help people with, which is, I've heard people say, oh, I have this opportunity, but I'm not going to bother going. I'm not going to throw my hat in or apply or respond because I'm not that person. And then I'll say, but in college you did that one thing, right? Like you worked at that one place, and like, yeah, but it was just part-time. All right. It's like, okay, but that's a qualification. And before that you created this product, and they're like, yeah, I didn't really sell any of it. It's like, well, yeah, but you did it. My point is that it's surprisingly hard for people, or let me say it a different way. It's too easy for people to discount qualifications from their past and say, oh, well, I'm not good enough, or I'm not ready enough to pursue that, because they're just discounting their actual skills and experience. So how can we, and this is an open-ended question for all of us, right? How can we help people to take better inventory of their skills and experience and apply it?
I work hard. I hit my imposter syndrome glass ceiling frequently. And I do have some tools in place to work through that, because otherwise, what's the alternative? What's the future look like for me and my family if I don't push past that? So I do have, it doesn't help for me to just have a mental note or even a written note of my accomplishments. When I hit when I hit that glass moment, I have a couple of like mindset coaches in place that I call to process that with. And they're the ones that give the feedback like, hey, but you've done this. They're partnering with you because of this, because your uniqueness is this, because yes, we all hit. I mean, when we're new, we're bad. And there's always somebody else doing the same thing, doing it longer, doing it better. We forget that somewhere 20 years ago, they were brand new and started and pushed past all that too. But it's very real when you're in it, when you're hitting your moment and your mindset's there and we're stuck in our stuff. That's why we have coaches. That's why we have mentors. That's why we have friends to help us get out. But choose them wisely, because you don't want to call the victim friends who are like, yeah, I know it's so hard. I can't do no creep. Are you just stop? You're making a fool of yourself. No, don't call that guy. call the one that's in the ring with you, building their own thing, facing their own struggles, or someone that's already done that, that's ahead of you, that understands what those moments are like, to encourage you and support you and give you legitimate feedback that they've seen you do. That's what I do. What about you, Marcus?
The quote that comes to mind for me is comfort is the enemy of success. And really, people that aren't willing to step outside of that comfort zone don't progress because they're so comfortable. And I feel like you have to force yourself out of that comfort zone enable you to grow, to learn a new skill and develop yourself. And it's not a comfortable, or it's not I mean, obviously it's not comfortable to not be comfortable, but it's not an easy thing to do. It's really awkward. Like when you start playing the piano, your hands feel heavy and clumsy, and they start to get sore in weird ways, but you just kind of going back to your earlier analogy about the yoga, you don't sit down at the piano and play Beethoven, but after a week, you might be able to play Mary Had a Little Lamb, but then you only go up from there, right? I just think that that's how it is for anything. And unfortunately, we're kind of trained in modern society to just get a job and stick with it. And the advice my dad gave me when I was growing up is to get a job with a big corporation and stay there as long as you can, which might have worked good in his generation. But in my generation, you kind of plateau out and you don't progress. And there's not a lot of room to excel and grow in that. And you get stuck in this environment where you're not developing new skills, unless the company is really good and kind of helps facilitate that. But the one I was in didn't. So I got comfortable, and unfortunately, not unfortunately, but I have 7 kids. Debbie has 6, so I have a lot of responsibilities. So I sat in that seat as long as I could because it was secure and my family was safe. But having been self-employed for the past 2 years, I feel like the amount of personal growth that I've had in the past 2 years has surpassed by more than double the 10 years at that other job, for sure. Just dealing with things like anxiety and I don't have a for sure paycheck, so I have to hustle and find out where that's coming from. It's been really uncomfortable, but it's also facilitated a lot of growth.
I feel like I mean, I've said this, I've quoted this before. Entrepreneurship is the world's best personal development program. And that comfort thing, that's one of my mantras that I do every morning, is get comfortable being uncomfortable, because that's where the growth is, right?
Well, and kind of to that point, one of the things that I'd like to add to something that you both said is, if you don't ask, you don't get. So if you don't ask for more, if you don't ask, and that's anything, if you don't ask a mentor for help, then you're not going to get that help. If you don't ask for that promotion, or if you don't ask that person to partner with you, or if you don't ask yourself, what do I really want, then you're not going to get it. If you don't ask, then you don't get. So you have to be constantly questioning, that kind of question in whatever it is that you're doing. You know what I mean? Like there's times where it's like, I don't know, should I really call this guy, and should I ask him these things? And I don't know, he's probably really busy. He probably doesn't have time to talk to me. And so I don't know, but at the same time, if you don't ask, you don't get. What's the worst that they could say is no. Great.
Right.
Now I actually know that that's not something I'm going to be able to get from them or from that situation. And I can move on to something different. I don't have to sit there and stew and think about it and overanalyze. That analysis by paralysis, or paralysis by analysis, rather, do you know what I mean, is huge, I think, for a lot of entrepreneurs, because you're starting to overthink things and you just start spinning your wheels. and there's not really a progress. It's like sometimes you got to take those first muddy steps. You know what I mean? You just got to kind of get into the mud and start walking through it. Like you can't think around how to get around the swamp without getting your feet wet and muddy. So like just start walking through it and figure it out as you go type thing. But that if you don't ask, you don't get is something that I've really, for myself, has really helped me in my career, and just being able to kind of press forward and ask for things, ask for help, ask for funding, ask for whatever it is that I need. Kind of like you said with those teenagers in those schools. Well, I don't have a lawnmower. Well, maybe you could ask your neighbor if you could rent theirs and give them a rent. You know what I mean? Like there's always something that you can think about, but you have to ask for it. Do you know what I mean? Like you really do.
Those who ask more get more. I tell my kids that all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's funny that we're actually born with those skills, right? Like toddlers take their first steps. You don't have to tell them to take their first steps. They want to, and they do it, and they fall down, and they get up and they do it again. Like you don't have to teach. It's kind of ironic that we don't have to be taught that when we're born, but eventually, I guess, like it gets beaten out of us or something, right? Like the universe, really, starts telling us like, oh no, you can't do it. So don't even bother, right? People start getting in that mindset. But it's ironic that's a skill that we're born with, is the ability to take a step or to try something and fail, and to ask for help. Like we have those skills when we're 1 and 2 and 3, and somewhere along the way we kind of lose sight of it and start suppressing it.
Well, people get scared about what other people think. They get laughed at or made fun of or something, and then they're like, "Oh, that hurts. That's scary." But Jim Carrey's quote on that, what is it? The faster, or when you can completely stop caring about what other people think of you, you're dangerous levels of freedom. I think that's true. The faster you can quit caring what other people might, not in an unkind way, not in a narcissistic way, but let go of that fear of judgment and laughter and being made fun of. Know that you're going to make mistakes along the way, and that, again, the people who count, the ones in the ring fighting for this with you, are cheering you on. You know, when I started my podcast and I had 55 subscribers, I still have less than 100, but I had billionaires on there. I had people with 2 million followers on there. They were not laughing at me. They were not making fun of me for being new. They were giving me the shout outs on public, on social, on their own pages, and saying, "Hey, this podcast's awesome. Follow these guys." You know what I mean? Because they've been down that road and they started and they were new and they know what that feels like. So surround yourself with those kind of people.
It's funny when you start lifting people up, you all just start floating up. I mean, I don't know how the physics of that work, but it's a true principle for sure.
It's like the rising tide lifts all ships.
Absolutely.
So
well said. Hey, well, unfortunately, we are gonna hit time here. There's something that Trent and I do traditionally here, which is music shout outs, and then we always end with some practical meditation or exercise that people can take away and put into practice for themselves, right? So let's do musical shout outs. Any volunteers to go first?
I will.
Okay, go Debbie.
One of the best songs of all time, "Don't Stop Believing" by Journey.
That
because
is a great
that's
song.
what it all comes down to. The moment that you lose faith in yourself or in the journey, that you stop taking those consistent action steps, that your dream dies. So don't let it. Don't stop believing. And I'm going to be singing that song live at the Teenpreneur event.
Hoorah.
Nice.
Invite anybody.
to make it to that, I'll tell you what.
Hey, my song is a song. It's I think it came out in 2001. It was on the Enya Memory of the Trees album, and it was just this instrumental track on there. But for some reason, I like super resonate with it. It almost has like X-Files intro song vibes. The song is called Tea House Moon, and just for whatever reason, I listened to that song and like repeat a lot when I was younger, and I just got so many good ideas and things from that song. So that's kind of my go-to if I just want to sit down for like a quick little breather or meditation or whatever. I just put that on and I love it.
Okay, so my tip, my meditation is a little bit beyond visualization. I call it envisioning, where I say it, see it, feel it. So I say the whatever, affirmations, declarations, whatever you want to call them. I say them And then I see them, but then I also pull in the emotions and the feelings, like Joe Dispenza and others talk about, of what it already feels like to be in that position of having already achieved my goals. So say it, see it, feel it. That's what I do in my morning envisioning meditation process.
Yeah, mine's actually pretty similar to that. I was just gonna say this, I think, came from Bob Proctor, but you basically ask yourself, how would it feel to, and then you say whatever your goal is. So how would it feel to have $1 million? How would it feel to be debt free? How would it feel to be more confident? And you just kind of think about it, and you kind of visualize it, and you try to actually feel it. There's the same thing that Deb was just saying, but the Joe Dispenza principle is if you feel it multiple times over a period of repeated like consistent time frame, then you actually, your mind doesn't know the difference between the thoughts and the beliefs and feelings in your mind versus reality, and it actually will start to bring it and draw it into your life and reality. So it's kind of serendipitous. We have the same thing.
Of course, that's why we're working together. We drew each other in, like-minded.
Sure.
Birds of a feather, tell you what. Well, Kevin, do you have a musical shout out you want to share?
Sure. And mine is not, it doesn't have a deeper meaning today. It's just a song that I'm totally hooked on right now, which is Record Player by Daisy the Great. I just love that song.
Dude, I love that song too.
Good. That's fantastic. My musical shout out is Finger Guns by Funk Mammoth.
Never heard of that one.
Fun.
Yeah, it's just a fun song. It's there's not a lot of words to it. It's pretty instrumental and like kind of hip hoppy, but like it just it gets me in a good mood. So
Love it. Music's
I'm gonna
the
listen
best.
to it right after.
yeah. Well, Debbie and Marcus, we really thank you for coming on, sharing your experiences and all of the work that you guys are involved with, especially with respect to entrepreneurs and mindset and belief systems. Just thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure chatting with you.
Same
Yeah,
here.
truly.
We appreciate you guys having us on.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Kevin, last
Yeah,
remark.
thank you so much. No, that's it. This has been amazing. So thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, I guess that's that, everyone.
Yes. Until next time.
Bye. Till next time.
Cheers.
I've got a record player that was made in 2014. Dyed my hair blue, it came out a C6 sort of green. I like vintage dresses when they fall just below my knees. I pretend I scraped them, climbing